What's up, everyone? Welcome back. This time we're taking a look at episode 1 of She-Hulk, the latest addition into the Disney Plus MCU shows. Let's waste no time. Let's get into it. Overall, I thought the first episode of She-Hulk was just meh. It wasn't anything horrible. It wasn't anything bad. This show is supposed to be a sitcom comedy, and I did not find myself laughing whatsoever. I thought the jokes were all lame. They weren't funny. This show did have some decent bright spots here and there, but overall, forgettable addition into the MCU already. And I already know that the MCU shows are gonna be like, the She-Hulk is the greatest thing since Miss Marvel. It's like, can you be honest with yourself and just say, hey, listen, the show is not that great? I mean, listen, I don't want to judge it too harshly because it is the first episode, but the first episode of a TV show can go a long way into shaping up what will come later on. I'll say this though. Like I said, the show did have some bright spots. I like the whole idea of the show being told in a fourth wall flashback. That's good, especially with Deadpool coming in very, very soon. You got to start incorporating the fourth wall jokes in a natural way. I think She-Hulk trying to incorporate that humor is actually good. And it's a nice way to work out the kinks. And I understand that Jen Walters does that in the comic books. So okay. In terms of Jen Walters as a character, I thought Tatiana Maslany did a fine job. You know, Jen Walters is supposed to be this superhero lawyer, and she's somebody who does her job. You know, then one day she's riding across the country with her cousin Bruce. They get attacked by a spaceship. Car skeets off the road, I should say. Bruce gets hurt. Jen gets hurt, and some of Bruce's blood gets into Jen's system, and that causes her to turn into the She-Hulk. So yeah, it's kind of a convoluted way how we get to She-Hulk. So they're just attacked by some random spaceship. I mean, in the books, I think Jen Walters was suffering from an illness or something like that, and the only way that she could be saved was via a blood transfusion. And I think the only compatible blood was Bruce Banner, and hence how she became She-Hulk. I mean, you could have did that. Could have added some more dramatic element to the Jen Walters character, and then having her use the fourth wall humor to cope with it would have worked better. Instead, we do this typical alien attacked us. Oh. And then the rest of the show is just Bruce and Jen bickering back and forth with Bruce trying to train Jen to use her Hulk powers, and Jen being like, I don't need to be trained. I'm already good at everything. Like, yeah, Bruce spent 15 years of his life trying to live with what he had, trying to find ways to merge the two beings that was in him, trying to control one, not having one be in the driver's seat all the time. I mean, we do get some nice little references to the Incredible Hulk with the breathing techniques that was done briefly and other stuff like that. But overall, the show was meant to just say, hey, listen, Jen Walters as She-Hulk, she's better than Bruce. She could do things better than Bruce. Unlike Bruce, who had to find ways to keep an intellect, Jen Walters already has her intellect and she's better than Bruce. The whole first episode is just to shove down the fact that Jen is better than Bruce and Jen is who you should like more than Bruce. Typical MCU bullshit where I want to like these new protagonists, but you find ways to make me not like these protagonists because you make them unbearable. And it's a shame because, like I said, I thought Tatiana Maslany, she's actually not that bad in the role. She has decent on-screen chemistry with Mark Ruffalo. They do have some decent bantering here and there. A lot of the jokes that they do are just horrible and bad. But, that's MCU. Their jokes have always been horrible and bad. Very few movies have decent jokes, but the MCU takes it to one level where it has a decent joke, it pushes it into the ground, and then it stops being funny. In the case of She-Hulk, none of the jokes are funny. Maybe one or two I chuckled at. The rest are just like, okay, this is just not funny. Can we move on, please? But yeah. So yeah, they're on Bruce's little compound. They're training, blah, blah, blah. Jen Walters isn't upset because she wants to, she doesn't want to be a superhero. She wants to live her life and be a lawyer and do lawyer things. But, Bruce is like, listen, this is who you are now. This is your life now. So you got to cope with it. And this is when Jen begrudgingly accepts the training of Bruce, after pretty much being a baby the entire time. Then, eventually Jen leaves the compound, goes back to her lawyering gig. She gets attacked by another superpowered being in a courtroom that lasts 12 seconds. And then the show just ends. So yeah, Like I said, the only thing She-Hulk did was lay the groundwork for what's to come. Did it do a fantastic job at it? No. Did it do a mediocre job at it? Yeah. Are there rooms for improvement? God, I hope so. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But overall, those are my thoughts on episode 1 of She-Hulk. Okay, episode 2. Let's talk about it. So episode 2 is basically... The story of episode 2, She-Hulk, is basically this. It picks up after the fight in the courthouse with Jennifer Walters and this unnamed superpowered woman who was revealed to be Titania, who is a super social media influencer. You know, Walters starts to gain popularity as now her superhero alter ego is thrust upon the world. However, the law firm that she works for sees this as a conflict of interest, and they basically just let her go because they rather work with Jennifer Walters and not with the She-Hulk, because they don't want the She-Hulk personality of her, persuading decisions that a jury might make. So Walters ends up being out of a job. Eventually, she gets picked up by this other law firm who are starting a superhero division, but they don't want Jennifer Walters as the public face. They want the She-Hulk as the public face. So she begrudgingly accepts the job. This, of course, leads to who her first client's going to be, which is, as we all know, is going to be Emil Blonsky, a.k.a. the Abomination from The Incredible Hulk, with Tim Ross reprising his role. Jen, of course, comes into a conflict of interest since he's the cousin of Bruce. She calls Bruce pretty much to get his blessing, which he has no problem giving, because through this little exposition, it's revealed that Bruce and Blonsky have made peace with one another. Have basically made peace with one another, and this makes Jennifer more comfortable taking on Blonsky as her first client. So yeah, that's basically what episode 2 is all about. Nothing really in terms of nothing. That's it. That's basically episode 2. There's no advancements as to who the big bad of this season is going to be. There's nothing else that really progresses this story in a more interesting way, with the exception of reintroducing Tim Roth as the Abomination, which is a nice little scene. I'm not going to lie. I like Tim Roth as an actor. I really like The Incredible Hulk as a movie. I thought he was really good as Emil Blonsky. And, I'm curious to see how they, reestablish him in the MCU. Then again, this is post-Endgame MCU, so my expectations are very, very, very low. So, just to put out the highlights of this episode, nothing really all that sensational happens in episode 2. The really unfunny humor from episode 1 is firmly in this, with the deconstruction of the superhero genre, which I can't stand, and especially with the MCU doing it, because they do it in such a self-parody, almost, I can't believe in almost a self-parody way, where it's poking fun of itself, which is really stupid. The whole family reunion scene with Jennifer Walters and her family was not funny at all. They literally have a character called Chad in that family, which is just so tacky and dumb. The recreation of the Silence of the Lambs when Walters is being led to see Blonsky was kind of cool. Then it got ruined when Walters actually starts to quote the movie, which I thought was kind of tacky. And I thought they were going to amp up the tackiness by having Emil Blonsky act like Hannibal Lecter. Thank God it didn't go down that route. That's actually my favorite scene in the entire show, in the entire episode, is Tim Roth and Tatiana Maslany acting off one another, and the whole conflict of interest that she has. I thought that was handled decently for the most part. The whole thing of only getting my job because I'm the She-Hulk and not because of my skills. Come on, do we really have to go down that route? I mean, come on, I had enough. I don't care. Just stop the social commentary. I don't give a shit about your social commentary. Just put on a good show. And so far, She-Hulk is not really impressing me 2 episodes in. The only 2 things that are keeping my interest high are Emil Blonsky, because they're going back to The Incredible Hulk. Hopefully one day we can see Tim Blake Nelson return as the leader and get that storyline up and running. And later on during the show, we're supposed to get reintroduction to Charlie Cox's Daredevil, which I'm very interested in seeing how they handle that. Yeah, Those are basically my only two things. Those are basically the only two things that are holding my interest for an overall just dull show so far. The humor's not good. The acting is decent for the most part. But overall, She-Hulk is not really impressing me. And that's 2 episodes in so far. So, listen, hopefully this show can find its footing, find its voice, and start to pick up some momentum. But we'll see. Episode 3 of She-Hulk was the worst one by far. The A-plot is Jennifer Walters trying to defend Abomination, aka Emil Blonsky, into getting a parole. That was the only mildly interesting part of this entire episode. Tim Roth's performance, even though it's a complete 180 from what he was doing in The Incredible Hulk, at least he was a lot of fun to see on screen, and the bantering he has is enjoyable. And even though that this version of Blonsky is completely detached from what he was in The Incredible Hulk, at least Tim Roth looks like he's having a lot of fun, and he's clearly the best part of this entire episode. And honestly, truthfully, I'd rather watch a Blonsky-led TV series over a She-Hulk-led TV series. Because even from The Incredible Hulk, I found Blonsky to be a more interesting character than Jennifer Walters. And the B-plot of this episode focuses on a lawyer that Jennifer Walters knows defending another lawyer who Jennifer Walters knows, because the lawyer named Batowski, whatever the hell his name is, was conned by a shape-shifting Asgardian into believing he was dating Megan Thee Stallion. Yes, you heard that right. An MCU show dedicated half of its time for a stupid celebrity cameo and an unfunny subplot. This show sucks. 3 episodes in, this show continues to suck. I hate this show so far. What is She-Hulk trying to do? What is the goal of this show? Is this the goal of the show, to waste your time and not do anything interesting? Yes, it is. Up to this point, the only thing that this show did effectively was deconstruct Bruce Banner's character and pretty much say that everything he went through is irrelevant compared to what Jennifer Walters is going through. So Bruce Banner, who suffered so much loss throughout the course of the MCU and finally found peace with himself, is nothing compared to Jennifer Walters and what she has to go through. She has to go through everything you see in the first 3 episodes of She-Hulk. Not really life-changing experiences there, buddy. I'm sorry, this episode is so freaking horribly bad. Like I said, the only entertaining part was Tim Roth and Benedict Wong making his return as Wong, and we get an explanation as to why Blonsky and Wong were doing that cage fight in Shang-Chi. In Shang-Chi. So at least we tied into what's going on with that. But overall, so far, She-Hulk has done nothing to convince me of why this show needs to exist and why Jennifer Walters as a character needs to be in the MCU. What is this show's purpose? What's the end game? Who's the villain? Is there a villain? What's going on here? I don't know. The show's doing a piss poor job at building up anything. This show is more worried about doing unfunny jokes than it is about establishing an overarching story from episode 1 all the way to its end. We are now almost 4 episodes in, and there's still no villain. We don't know if there is a villain. Maybe this show is just a day in the life of, and Walters has to do this with no consequences for her to deal with as the She-Hulk. It's just say, hey guys, I'm here, I'm She-Hulk. This show is painfully bad, and I fear for when Daredevil eventually pops up in this show and how they're going to handle it. I really fear how they're going to do this. I really fear for this. I really have a lot of fear for this. Oh my god, I can't stand it. I want to like She-Hulk. I want to like this show, but it does everything wrong. The fourth wall jokes are starting to get painfully unfunny. Jennifer Walters' best friend is Kat Dennings' Darcy, turned up to 3,000 and painfully unfunny. I'm sorry. The best friend has got so many jokes that just land so flat. It's worse than a flat. It's worse than a flat tire. Sorry for the bad run-on sentence, but this show does it to you because it's really badly written. Oh my god. And like I said, the whole subplot of Megan Thee Stallion, so dumb. A waste of time. Why is this here? And the end credit scenes for each of the episodes keep getting worse and worse and worse. The first end credit scene, Bruce and Jen talk about Captain America's virginity. Why? The second end credit scene shows Jen just ditching around her parents' house. Why? And this end credit scene just shows Jen and Megan Thee Stallion dancing. Why? And this end credit scene just shows Jen and Megan Thee Stallion dancing. So instead of focusing on what the actual story of the show is, you want to do random bullshit. The MCU sucks. I wish the MCU would just die already. It should have died when Thanos was defeated at Endgame, and then you just reboot. And then you just reboot the whole continuity detached from the MCU, because the fact that this show takes place in a universe where Thanos wiped out half the world population and where Tony Stark made the ultimate sacrifice, the fact that this show exists in that universe is pitiful. Absolutely pitiful. Yes, those are my thoughts on episode 3. It sucked. The only redeeming quality is Tim Roth because he at least is having a lot of fun, and the Abomination being released into society. Everything else about episode 3 was garbage. Even the ending with a construction crew attacking Walters was stupid, where it finally hints at some sort of a villain. Who's the disappointing villain going to be? No idea. Okay, flat out. Episode 4, She-Hulk, is the worst episode by far in this entire show. This episode is completely and utterly useless. This entire episode is basically Jen trying to find a boyfriend, but everyone just wants her in She-Hulk form. It's painfully not funny. You get a cameo by former wrestler David Otunga, and she then meets a doctor. Then at the end, then it all's for nothing because the doctor ends up just blowing off Jen in human form. Basically, what was the point of this entire subplot of Jen finding a boyfriend? Was it for comedy? Because if you're trying for comedy, you fail miserably. This shit was not funny. It was painfully stupid. Speaking of painfully unfunny, you have this entire B-plot of Wong trying to go after a rival magician named Donnie Blaze. What a horrible... Oh, my God. The whole subplot with Donnie Blaze is utterly and entirely stupid. Instead of this show, I don't know, trying to establish a main villain, trying to, bouncing off what happened with the destruction crew at the end of the last episode, it just goes for more painfully unfunny comedy, and it's almost as if what happened with the destruction crew never happened. You get one scene where Jen's dad, confronts her about it, and she just blows it off, and we never mention it again. The show goes right back to being about absolutely nothing and doing absolutely nothing. What is this show waiting for? Why is it biding its time? Why are we 4 episodes in and there's still nothing happening? What is the long-term story of this show? There is none. Every single episode is random, where nothing happens. It is boring. This show is not funny. It's boring. Oh my God. Now, so back to this stupid Johnny Place subplot, which is utterly dumb. Blaze ends up being revealed, and Blaze is this former student at Comertage, and he ended up using the magic that was taught to him for his own, to do parlor tricks, basically. So Wong sues him. There's this joke of this drunk girl named Madison constantly being brought into the shows. The character of Madison is completely fucking useless. She's not funny. The stuff with Wong and her is painfully unfunny. This is bullshit. Why is this bullshit in this thing? What is the purpose of She-Hulk? This show sucks. This episode sucks. Nothing positive is about this show. Who finds this funny? I want to know who finds this funny. This is not funny. I wouldn't even classify this as juvenile humor. It's just... She-Hulk is the definition of comedy written by people who don't know comedy. This shit is stupid. I want to see She-Hulk act. If She-Hulk's going to be a comedy, do something funny. Don't do forced thing. And the whole fourth wall breaking, it's getting really, really bad at this point. Baby, you are not Deadpool. You don't have Deadpool's charisma. I'm sorry, but Tatiana Maslany, she's not a horrible actress. She's doing the best with the bullshit that she's being given. But listen, Jen Walters / She-Hulk, you are not Deadpool. You don't have Deadpool's charm nor charisma to do both fourth wall breaking. So yeah. So basically, Donnie opens a portal, a bunch of demon bats come in, She-Hulk leaves her date, beats them up, goes back, bangs the doctor guy that has an interest in her. She's in human form. He blows her off. She blows her off. Process server comes. Titania magically reappears, and she is suing Jen. Okay, whatever. I think the next episode is where Jen gets a lawyer, and it's gonna be Matt Murdock. And oh my God, I'm dreading the next episode, because what the hell are they gonna do with Daredevil? I don't know, and I'm in fear. time in fear for the man without fear. And then you have a mid-credit scene where Madison and Wong are talking about drinks and watching Sopranos, and it's not funny, and I don't care. So, yeah, episode 4 of She-Hulk, by far the worst episode so far. This was bad. Alright, episode 5 of She-Hulk was even worse than episode 4. Nothing happens in this episode. Episode 5 of She-Hulk is basically Jennifer Walters doing a court battle with Titania over the use of the She-Hulk name, since Titania trademarked it and is now exploiting it for profit. Oh my god, what a giant waste of time. And the the subplot is Jen's best friend, whose name I still can't remember, and a guy that works with them going to a superhero drip maker to get Jen better outfits as She-Hulk. This show is so freaking bad. What is the purpose of She-Hulk? I don't understand it. We are now 5 episodes deep, and what's the lingering threat? What's the purpose of the show? Listen, the WandaVision wasn't all that great. I mean, that show kind of filtered off once you got towards the end of it. But at least there was some semblance of purpose that took place within those 9 episodes. At least the show was trying to be about something. The Falcon and Winter Soldier, even though that show just completely disappointed me, it was trying to be about something. Loki was trying to be about something. Moon Knight trying to be about something. Miss Marvel trying to be about something. This show, what is the story? What's the overarching story? What am I watching? These 5 episodes have been the most random things I've ever seen Marvel put together. It's so bad. The first episode was mediocre. The stuff with Blonsky was nowhere near interesting. It was just played up for laughs. This show sucks. It legitimately sucks. This episode is entirely skippable. If you were to skip episode 5, you'd miss absolutely nothing. You stretched out a 5-minute problem into a half hour, and again, the comedy still sucks. Everything about this show still sucks. And the end teaser of the Power Broker creating Daredevil's new helmet, hey, listen, it ain't enough to get me excited, because I fear for what you people are going to do with the man without fear. Yeah, I'm sorry. She-Hulk can skip. Not only that, this episode further reinstates that this show is more sexist than the people who bash it for being than the people who bash it. There's literally a scene where Jennifer Walters and her lawyer friend are going on a 1-minute man bashing. Everything about this show is superficially bad. I hate this show. I really hate this. I'm only watching it just to make this review. Thank God I never have to watch it ever again. I think there's only 9. This is supposed to be like a 9-episode series, so episode 6 is coming up. So at least this crap ass show is almost done. I can't wait for it to end. Alright, so episode 6 of She-Hulk was just another filler waste of time episode. Basically, Jen gets invited to her best friend's wedding with the condition that she can't be She-Hulk, and for some reason this causes a conflict within Jen, because in her mind, oh, I get to be She-Hulk in some place that I want to do. It's like, so you want to be She-Hulk at your friend's wedding to take the attention off of her to put it on yourself. You are a narcissistic bitch, Jen Walters, and that's why I don't like you as a character. And then once we get to this stupid wedding, this stupid pointless wedding, she strikes up a conversation with some dude who has an interest in Jen and Jen alone, which is okay, I guess, if you like that sort of thing. And then Tatiana just appears from out of nowhere. Why, I don't know. They get into a really bad slapstick fight that ends with Tatiana breaking her teeth. Unfunny, uncool, and flat out stupid. Tatiana as a character is stupid. The actress who plays Tatiana is insufferably annoying. You can do Volley Girl accents and be endearing, like in Mean Girls, or you can do Volley Girl accents like Jamila Jamil's doing and just want to punch this woman in the face. Not because she's a good villain or a good character, but because she's just so insufferable you want to put her out of your own misery. That's how bad the Tatiana character is. She sucks. Get her out of here. I don't want to see her again. Horrible villain. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Who absolutely has done nothing to the overall quality of the show. She appears in the first episode out of randomness. Then all of a sudden she returns in the next episode just to do a copyright infringement case. Wow. And then she has a contrived, really bad slapstick fight at a wedding, which is even worse. And then you get the whole B plot of Book and Ramos defending this guy called Mr. Immortal, whose whole shtick is that he kills himself to get himself out of bad marriages. This whole thing was not funny. It did nothing but just paint men in a bad light. And these two idiots are supposed to be lawyers. They do a piss poor job at defending their client. Lawyers are not supposed to be judgmental towards their clients. Lawyers are supposed to be unbiased and impartial. These two idiots are clearly against this man, and they do a piss poor job at defending him. And then we get a follow-up to what happened with the Destruction Crew in episode 2 that was completely abandoned in the preceding episodes because we needed to see She-Hulk and Megan Thee Stallion do twerking, and She-Hulk not really question why she was being attacked by a bunch of strange people in the middle of the night. We get a follow-up to that, and it's a really bad follow-up. Apparently, Jen has her fans, and she has her detractors. And these detractors are on a site called Intelligentsia, who, quote unquote, by Ramos, is a man baby site. And the show is heavily implying that the leader is having something to do with getting the Hulk serum. So if you remember The Incredible Hulk, Dr. Stearns was not portrayed as a man baby. He was portrayed with a man who has ideas, who has delusions of grandeur. He wants to take the Hulk serum and just make something out of it. He said it himself. They can unlock cures for new diseases. They can have unlimited access to anything. That is not a man baby. That is somebody with delusions of grandeur. If they make the lead into a man baby, then goddamn, this show is even going to be worse and worse and worse. You're going to take a character whose whole shtick is delusions of grandeur and just turned him into an incel baby. This show sucks. The people who wrote this show sucks. Jessica Gao sucks. Kevin Feige sucks. His whole team sucks. This show sucks. And I fear for the man without fear. I fear for Daredevil. Because his appearance, they're coming soon. And good holy Christ, I fear for how they handle him. Yes, episode 6 sucks. And I can't wait for the show to end. Okay. Episode 7 of She-Hulk is as follows. Jen and a guy named Josh, who she met in the previous episode, go on a series of dates. When they finally sleep together, Josh ghosts her, and Jen becomes obsessed, wanting to know what happened to this man. Now, all the while this is all going on, Jen gets a role from Blonsky's parole officer because Blonsky's inhibitor has been malfunctioning. This leads Jen to go to Blonsky's retreat, where we find out that he's become a guru for superpowered beings, and is pretty much trying to help them be at peace with themselves and blah 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 blah. Jen goes to this retreat. She joins the group. We find out that one of the the wrecker from the Destruction Crew is there at the retreat, but he's there to renounce his sins and apologizes. It's one big giant kumbaya thing. And then we get to the end where we find out that Josh was an asshole the entire time as he steals She-Hulk's blood. Yeah, that's pretty much all that happens in this episode. It's yet another just time waster of an episode in which you have 1 second of story progression at the end. Does it have any highlights? Okay, there's a couple. The fight scene between Man-Bull and a Matador-like superhero was mildly entertaining. Tim Roth as Blonsky, he's entertaining, even though it's clear as day that the Blonsky in She-Hulk is just so radically different from the Blonsky from Incredible Hulk. You cannot believe that these characters are one and the same, because they're literally meant to be the same person. So the drastic change in personality is really just mind-boggling. But Tim Roth is a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed him. I do not like how they portray Jen as being awesome and great when you watch this show, she's clearly anything but that. The show tells us that Jen's going to be nominated for Female Lawyer of the Year, and if you've even seen this show, she sucks at her job as a lawyer. Like, I know in the comic books, She-Hulk's a really good lawyer, but in this show, they do a piss poor job because there are basic fundamentals that she can't even get right. And I'm supposed to believe she's going to be nominated for Female Lawyer? Please. Not to mention, her best friend's got a set of balls on her for saying, "Stop texting your boyfriend on work hours." Bitch, you're doing the same thing. Stop talking. This episode continues to show the downright contradictory and stupidity of all its characters. They call someone out for doing the same thing they're doing. It's stupid. This show is stupid. This episode, the only thing about this episode that's remotely interesting is Tim Roth, because Tim Roth is great. And the last 10 seconds when we find out that Josh is working for the Hulk King. The Hulk King. Basically, Josh was an undercover asshole the entire time. So, what did you expect? I think it was bound to happen, or the show just can't help itself to be such a cliche and not even have one hint of originality to it. So yeah, episode 7 of She-Hulk. The retreat stuff was mildly entertaining, even though it was a complete waste of time. And you get 10 seconds of progression. Oh my god, can we get this shit over with already? Okay, episode 8 of She-Hulk finally introduces Daredevil, Matt Murdock, and I will not lie, I actually somewhat enjoyed episode 8 of She-Hulk. This was the more bearable episode thus far that I've seen. Charlie Cox reprises his role as Daredevil, and I ain't going to lie, I like the new take that they went with Matt Murdock. A lot of the jokes were not that great. But he did have some decent comebacks and some decent one-liners. And surprisingly enough, Cox and Tatiana Maslany actually have some decent on-screen chemistry with each other. And I don't know what it is, but I think the appearance of Daredevil actually boosted the She-Hulk character to actually being somewhat funny in some areas. To this episode's credit, it didn't try to throw Daredevil under the bus, which was everyone's main fear. I mean, it did try to do some in some areas, but they did show some constraint. Not every single joke Daredevil told, was a laugher. Though there is one that I actually did quite get a chuckle at when he's trying to when he's like fighting off some thugs, and one of the guys, and someone says, "Hey man, are you a lawyer too?" He's like, "No, I just watch a lot of legal dramas. I know some stuff." I actually got a kick out of that. I actually thought that was actually pretty humorous. So yeah, the inclusion of Daredevil in episode 8 and his integration to the MCU, I thought for the most part was decent. It wasn't fantastic, it wasn't great, but it was decent. The fight scene wasn't really all that great. It was kind of, but for this show, at least it's something happening. Episode 8, it felt like something was happening in terms of just trying to act like a superhero show for a change, and not a half-ass boring legal comedy, which it sucks balls at. I actually do like Matt Murdock's introduction, where he completely shows up Jen at a court hearing. Jen's trying to defend a guy named Leapfrog with a defective suit, and he's suing the dressmaker that was introduced a few episodes earlier, Eugene, the drip broker, who's being represented by Murdock. And you clearly can tell that Murdock is a better lawyer than Jen. He completely just rakes her under the coals and makes her look like a complete dumbass. And then Jem has the nerve to break the fourth wall and be like, "Who's this asshole?" This asshole clearly knows more about law than you do, you dumbass. But after that, all that happens, and when Murdock and Walters actually start to have some scenes together, they start to develop a mutual friendship, a mutual understanding, a friendship in a way, which eventually leads to a sex scene. Was it necessary? Not really. Did it bother me? No, it didn't, to be honest with you. This show's got many more problems, and a sex scene between Daredevil and She-Hulk is not really one of them. But like I said, in terms of this episode's writing, it wasn't as bad as everything leading up to it has been. I mean, this show did try to paint Jen as being sympathetic. I mean, Jesus Christ. There's the first 3 minutes, Jen's talking to her boss, and her boss is questioning Jen taking on a case because it might come into conflict with her. And then she has the nerve to be like, "Well, I don't want to be put in that position again, ever." Asshole, you willingly defended Emil Blonsky, and you literally told your cousin Bruce that you don't care, you're going to take it anyway. So I'm sorry if I don't buy your moral compromise. You suck. the continuity and writing of this show still sucks because it doesn't know what the fuck it wants to do. But yeah, Daredevil wasn't raked over the coals, thank God. With more tweaking, Daredevil can work in the MCU. A more lighthearted version of Daredevil can work in the MCU. I mean, when I was still watching Matt Murdock on screen. Charlie Cox was still playing Matt Murdock. He was just playing a more, lighthearted version of Matt Murdock. He wasn't cracking jokes endlessly. I mean, they did, but there were some pretty humorous bits, like when Murdock is explaining to Jen what they're going to do in order to go out of the warehouse, and they're comparing henchmen to goons and the definitions between the two. I actually thought that was legitimately funny. Matt Murdock trying to come up with a game plan in order to get into the warehouse to stop this half-assed villain named Leapfrog who kidnapped Eugene because of a defective suit was actually not that bad. It was decent. So yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of complaining to do with Matt Murdock. I think the last 10 minutes of the episode was kind of stupid. This entire episode, we went almost the entire episode without Jen's annoying ass best friend, and the show just kicks you in the balls and be like, nah, we're gonna bring her back just to piss you off. I hate Jen's best friend. I hate the character of Nikki. She is so unbearably annoying. She makes Darcy likable. But at least Darcy, Kat Jennings' character from Thor, she does have some likability to her. This character of Nikki, she has no likability. She's overly annoying. I just want to punch her in the face. Her voice irritates me. And then Jen has this whole stupid subplot of not wanting to lose her gala dress because she's getting Female Lawyer of the Year, which we eventually get to that gala. Then it's invaded by intelligentsia, and Jen gets pissed off because they're showing memes of her and her in a sex tape, and she goes berserk until she's being captured by damage control. But before all this, Jen hints that the villain will finally be revealed. Who is the villain? Who had maybe the villain of the show, where that the show did a piss poor job at building up to it. I don't care who the villain is anymore. I wouldn't care if the villain was the Red Skull. I don't care. I just want this shit to end already, because She-Hulk has been not good. Like I said, episode 8 is the most passable, but it's not really saying much compared to what came before it. And even in this episode, you still get some stupid stuff here and there, but it's more watchable than what came before it. And now, let's just see how this show ends. Let's see who the villain is. Maybe it is going to be the leader. I don't know. And like I said, at this point, I don't care anymore. So yeah, the penultimate episode was not that bad. How it goes how the finale ties everything up, it remains to be seen. The season finale of She-Hulk was one of the most bizarre, confusing, stupidest things I have ever seen. I want the MCU to be rebooted fast. She-Hulk, this entire show, sucked. If this show is a multi-million-dollar waste of time. That's how bad She-Hulk is from start to finish. This show sucked. It's not quirky, it's not funny, it's stupid, and it sucks. This episode picks up where the last one leaves off after Jen went into her Hulk rage after a sex tape was posted while at a gala. Now everything's all happened. She gets caught by the damage control. She gets thrown in jail. Okay, bang, boom. She loses her job as a lawyer. She can no longer perform. She can no longer become She-Hulk. She goes to live with her parents for a couple of days. Then after she gets bored with that, she tries to find comfort with Bruce. No response. Then she tries to go to Blonsky's place, which she eventually does. Then while at Blonsky's place, she goes to a little rally that Blonsky's holding. That Blonsky's a part of. Lo and behold, thanks to great detective work by the annoying best friend and Pug, it's revealed that intelligentsia is ran by Todd, the random goofball date that Jennifer dated and who kept popping up out of this entire show. He basically, this entire thing is a hit piece on people is an entire hit piece on trolls, pretty much. What's even worse is that it's an over exaggeration on people who don't like certain things. Now, do people like this exist? Yes. Is that the bulk of the fan base? No. But She-Hulk treated it like the bulk of the fan base, which is a slap in the face to the people who still support the MCU. Like idiots like myself who still support this shit after Endgame, which was the perfect finale for the MCU. The MCU should have been rebooted when Endgame happened. So, okay, she goes to this stupid seminar that Blonsky's a part of. A random ass fight happens where everyone and the mother starts to show up. Then all of a sudden, Jen breaks the fourth wall, and she ends up going into the real world. And she talks to Kevin, who is an artificial intelligence, and Kevin is supposed to be Kevin Feige. This whole thing was stupid. And when you look at it in the larger context of the MCU, this whole thing is even more fucking stupid. It's stupid. It's not cool. It's dumb. If you find it cool, good for you. I thought it was stupid. Basically, Kevin is an artificial intelligence that pretty much plans the outcome of everything that ever happened in the MCU, which raises way too many questions. But I'm not going to get into it because I don't care. So after Jen does some fucking around, changing the ending, which got way too convoluted, you had Blonsky turning into Abomination and trying to protect Jen from getting hurt. You had a whole Banner coming back out of nowhere. You had Titania appearing out of nowhere. You had this convoluted story of Todd wanting the She-Hulk serum because he feels that Jen doesn't deserve it, but only he does. It's fucking stupid. So all that shit got erased. Todd ends up going to jail regular. Banner goes back to jail. And then the mid-credit scene, Wong takes him out of jail. Jen gets her powers back. The Hulk has a son for some reason. Matt Murdock returns for a couple of scenes. I don't know why we brought him back. It pretty much confirms that Matt and Jen are going to be a couple, which I am not looking forward to. And yeah, that's pretty much that's the season finale of She-Hulk. It was utter crap. To go on top of the shit Sunday of this show, which was also crap. If I have anything positive to say about this show, the inclusion of Charlie Cox returning as Daredevil was a lot of fun. The actor who played Jen's dad, he had a lot of funny moments, and he was one of the best male characters in the entire show. Mr. Immortal will forever be immortalized with the jumping out the window meme. That was hilariously awesome. One of the very few jokes that in this show that got me a laugh. Everything else in this show was garbage. The characters suck. Jen is not likable. She's terrible. And this show is just random things happening with no thorough story, with no thorough line. There's nothing to latch onto with this shit. You do with this. Once you get to the last 3 episodes of She-Hulk, they all of a sudden shoehorn this intelligentsia crap. And it ends up just being absolutely nothing worth mentioning about. It's just garbage. This entire show was garbage. She-Hulk gets a 3 out of 10. That's it. I'm done.